Hello guys, how are you today? I hope you are doing pretty good and you are enjoying this week. So we are just at the beginning of the week and today we are just gonna be working with simple past and past perfect. So are you ready to start? Welcome to the jungle. As I was telling you, today we are just gonna be working with the past, but we are just gonna be working in different ways with the past. We have worked before with past simple and past progressive, okay? But today we are working with simple past and past perfect. And we are just going to be working with the differences that they have and how can we use them just in order to talk about a sequence of events. So let's continue and let's start. Okay, first of all, the first thing that we need to do is to remember what are the uses for the simple past. As you can remember, we say that we use the simple past to talk about finished actions in the past or one action after the other. For example, she opened the door, turned on the lights, and entered the house, or an action that happened in a certain situation. The car knocked the child down when he was crossing the road. Or to talk about a short action that finished in the past. You indicate when it happened with an adverb of time, which is very important whenever you are talking about short actions finished in the past. For example, yesterday I arrived at home too late. You can also use the simple past to talk about a finished action that takes a long period of time. And of course, you have to indicate it in the sentence. For example, I lived in Britain when I was young. So one more time, as you can notice over here, we have different uses for the simple past. One of the uses, one action after the other. The second use, an action that happened in a certain situation. To talk about a short action finished in the past, but you have to indicate it when it happened with an adverb of time. And to finish, a finished action that takes a long period of time. Okay? But also you have to indicate it in the sentence. Let's continue with this. Another thing that we need to recall, we need to remember is what are the uses and also the structures for the past simple. As you can remember, this past simple in the affirmative sentence, it is made of the subject plus the verb in past. We have it over here, the verb number 2, which is in your list of verbs, which is the simple past in your list of verbs, okay? For example, he met his friend last year, okay? Now, whenever you're working with negatives, as you can notice over here, and interrogatives, as you can notice over here, the thing that we are just going to be working with, first of all, we need to identify if you're working with the verb to be or if you're working with a different verb from the verb to be. Okay? If you're working with a different verb from the verb to be, then in the negatives, you are going to use the auxiliary did plus not. But in this case, the verb is going to be in the base form, so which is the verb number 1 in your list of verbs. Okay? For example, over there you have the example, it says, she did not work yesterday. Okay? So as well as we already know that whenever we are working with auxiliary verbs and we want to create questions, the only thing you gotta do over there is that you have to switch the auxiliary by the subject. As you can notice over here in the question, you begin with did plus subject plus the verb in the base form, which is the verb number 1 in your list of verbs. For example, did he work yesterday? Where is the mistake over there? In the negative and in the interrogative, I have one mistake. Remember that I told you that always, whenever you are working with auxiliary verbs, okay, in this case the auxiliary did, The verb has to be in the base form. So where is the mistake in these sentences? Well, if you pay attention in the negative, as you can notice over here, the verb is in past, which is impossible. Okay? So you have to say, she did not work yesterday. It's not possible to say she did not work. Okay? This sentence, therefore, is not correct. Why? Because the verb has to be in the base form. Okay? Therefore, the interrogative, it is exactly the same. If you read it as it's it over here, did he work yesterday? That is not correct. Why? Because you already have the past in the auxiliary did. So then the question should be, did he work yesterday? Is not with the ed. The verb cannot be in past whenever you have the auxiliary did. Have that in mind and remember, always, 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 when you are working with the auxiliary did in negatives and interrogatives, the verb is going to be in the base form. Okay? So far so good. Let's continue. Now, as I was telling you, we have two different forms to work with the simple past. We have the past of the verb to be, and we have the past of the auxiliary did. As well, as you can notice over here, we have the following: subject, verb in past, and the object in this case. In the affirmative, you already know subject, verb in simple past, and object. For example, he played football. Remember that for the negative, as I was telling you, when you're working with the auxiliary did, the verb is going to be in the base form. Negative, structure, subject, did not, verb in the base form, and the object. For example, he did not play football. For the yes/no questions, remember that you have to switch the auxiliary by the subject. So you have structure, did, subject, as you can notice over here, verb, base form, object, and a question mark. For example, did he play football? These, the yes/no questions, are the questions that you have in Spanish, and they are called closed questions. Why? Because the only possible answer is yes or no, okay? But also, as well as we have in Spanish open questions, in English we have the WH questions. But what are WH questions? Well, are those that allow us to give a complete information or to ask for complete information. Not only yes, not only no. But those structures are WH word, for example, what, when, who, which, where, how long, how often, etc. Okay? The auxiliary did, subject, verb in the base form, object, and the question mark. For example, when did he play football? So your answer should be, well, he played football yesterday. It is not possible to answer yes he did or no he didn't whenever you have a WH question. Now, the other part, as you can notice, is whenever you have the verb to be. When you have the verb to be is going to be working as the verb of the sentence, but also is going to work as the auxiliary of the sentence. For example, in the affirmative, you have subject plus was, were, and the object. Example, they were friends. In the negative, you are going to go with the subject, was not, were not, and the object. Example, they were not friends. In the yes/no questions, as far as I remember that I told you, you have to switch the auxiliary by the subject, okay? So was, were, subject, object, and the question mark. So in your example, were they friends? But also we have WH, okay? So WH word, was, were, subject, object, question mark. For example, why were they friends? Okay? Now, let's continue with this. In here we have some examples with the simple past. As you can notice, all of the examples that I have over here are working with the auxiliary did. Okay? For example, number one, he drew the old man out the ditch. Number two, she used to wash clothes daily. Number three, he wrote an interesting story. Number four, the child completed his homework. Number five, did he live in his house? Number six, his mother would wash clothes. Number seven, did he write a letter? Number eight, we pay tribute to our national poet. Number nine, the boys recited the national anthem. And number 10, she did not sleep. As you can notice over here, I'm sorry, it's very hot over here. I'm sorry. As you can notice, all of those are in simple past. Okay? Now, but what is the difference whenever you're working with a simple past and the past perfect? Remember that at the very beginning of this lesson, we said that we are just going to be talking about the sequence of events. Okay, let's continue with the next. What is the past perfect? Well, as you can notice over here, the past perfect is used to talk about something that happened before something else in the past. So we are talking about two actions in the past, but one took place first and the other one took place second. As you can notice over here, you have past perfect, past simple, present, and the future. And I have some examples for you over here. Number one, my family had already arrived before I left. After we had finished dinner, we got ready to go out. When the police arrived, the murderer had killed everyone. By the time we met, I had eaten all the packets of salt and vinegar crisps. One thing that it is very, very important whenever we are working with the past perfect is that always, 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 we are going to have that little word that is a conjunction or a connector, I'm sorry, that we have over here, for example, before, after, when, by the time. These little words that we have over here, and the phrase that we have over here, they help us out to indicate or to set up which is the action that took place first and what is the action that took place after that. So remember that we are talking about two actions in the past, one action before another action. Let's go with the structures. One thing that you have to pay attention at is that always, 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 when we are working with the past perfect, you are going to need the auxiliary had, obligatory, and the verb in past participle. For example, subject plus had plus past participle and complement, that is the affirmative sentence. She had finished the test. In the negative, you are going to use had not or hadn't, and the verb in past participle. She hadn't finished the test. Interrogatives, yes, no questions. Remember, you have to switch the auxiliary by the subject. Is had she finished the test? We have different usages for the past perfect. Number one, to describe an action finished before another action in the past. Richard had gone out when his wife arrived in the office. I want you to notice something, that whenever we are working with the past perfect, usually the second action is in simple past. So pay attention to that, okay? To describe an action that happened before a specific time in the past. Christine had never been to an opera before last night. You're going to say, teacher, but you told me that usually we have the simple past in the second action. Yes, if you can notice, this expression of time is referring to the past, before last night. To describe cause and effect. always combined with past simple. I got stuck in the traffic because there had been an accident. Okay, I got stuck in the traffic. Okay, this is in past. What is the reason? Because there had been an accident. There had been an accident past before you got stuck in the traffic. Okay, to emphasize the result of an activity in the test. I've been to London twice by the time I got a job in New York. Okay, so as you can notice, I got a job in New York is in past. Okay, but you are emphasizing that you'd been to London twice by the time you got a job in New York. So picture this in your mind and let's continue. I have some examples for you. I worked there for 10 years before I found a new better job. She had never been to America until she finally took her first trip in 1888. Robert took a trip on a train. He was very excited. He had never traveled on a train before. The train had just left when I arrived to the station. Had she just left the room when the police arrived? I hadn't eaten my food when Tommy arrived. As you can notice, in all of the sentences, I have one action in the past and one action before that, which is the past perfect. We are talking about sequence of events. It is important to emphasize that when we are working with the past perfect, most of the time it is followed by a sentence in past because we are talking about an action that took place before another action in the past. In other words, we are talking about sequence of events. Let's see the following examples. As you can notice over here, simple past sentences, I have this in order, okay? First, I finished high school in 1995. I got my first job in 1996. I started university in 1998. I got married. I finished university in 2004. I had my first child. If we're talking about a sequence of events, I'm going to take the last sentence and I'm going to join it with the previous one. So then I'm going to have what happened first? I finished university in 2004 or I had my first child? Well, the first action is I finished university in 2004. Then this action is going to be in past perfect. So you need the auxiliary have and the verb in the past participle. Example, let's work with these two sentences. Number one, I had finished university before I had my first child. As you can notice over here, you have had and the verb in the past participle. Now let's connect I finished university in 2004 and I got married. Which action took place first? Well, as you can notice, I got married first. Okay? So then, I had gotten married by the time I finished university. Now let's connect. I got married with I started university in 1998. What happened first? Well, first I started university, then I got married. So, I had started university before I got married. Now, we have to be very, very careful whenever we use the conjunction or the connector after. Because when we are working with that little word after, immediately after that, you are going to have the past perfect. Then you are going to need the comma and you are going to have the simple past. Example, After I have gotten my first job, after I have gotten my first job, I started university. Now, after I had finished high school, I got my first job. You have to be very, very careful whenever you are using after to talk about the past perfect. Because when you have after, what it follows, it is going to be the sentence in past perfect. Then you're going to need a comma and you're going to continue with a simple past. Okay? Now, another thing that I have over here is a very short summary within the structures of the simple past, the past continuous, and the past perfect. So for the past tense, you have subject, verb, and the complement. And the negative, subject, did not, didn't, and the verb in the base form. And for the interrogative, did, subject, verb in the base form, and the question mark. So remember that we use the past continuous to talk about an ongoing action in the past. And the structure in this case is with the subject, was, were, and the verb ing. Negative, subject, was, were, not, and the verb in ing. And in the interrogative, was, were, subject, verb in ing, and the question mark. And the past perfect simple, so it is used to talk about one action that took place before another in the past. And we have already worked with those structures. Subject, had, and the verb. Negative, subject, had not, and the verb. And the interrogative, had, subject, verb, and the question mark. I hope you have enjoyed this class of today, my friends. And if you have any questions, please send me a message over there in my WhatsApp, or also you can send me a message over here below in this video. I hope you have enjoyed the class, and please remember, be good, take care, behave bad, but take care good. See you next time. Bye-bye.